Hello, in today's video we're going to take a look at the conversion process of a Hammond AO-29 amplifier. The AO-29 amplifier was kind of an all-in-one, all-purpose amplifier. It served many different functions inside the Hammond organs and was native to the M-Series Hammonds, like the M2, the M3, and the M100. This one I think might be one of the later ones because it doesn't have a tap for a field coil speaker that you would normally see. There's a little speaker jack back there. I don't know if you can see it, that little black thing. And it doesn't appear to have two wires for the for a field coil. So I think this might be a little bit of a later one. I haven't looked at any codes yet, but I've ran across a couple of these AO-29s, and they're pretty long chassis, and they won't fit too many things. But I've recently gotten something I think is going to work pretty well, and I'll show you what I'm talking about right now. Here, I just got this mid-century looking cabinet, and one of the things I think the former owner said this was some kind of hi-fi cabinet. It's made of really, really thick plywood. He added these mid-century type legs to it, and this front TV type grill. But if we turn it around, we'll see it's made of really thick plywood. I mean, there are many plies to this wood, and it's very, very thick, very heavy plywood. Birch, and two 10-inch speakers. But the greatest thing about this for our purposes is that this thing is going to perfectly fit our Hammond AO-29 chassis. I'll show you here. I mean, it's like it was custom made for it. Perfect width across. So what we're going to do, we're going to go forward with this kind of setup in mind. We're going to have to pare down all of the stuff inside the AO-29. It's really, again, it served kind of a Swiss Army knife of functions inside the organ, a lot of which we won't need. So we'll probably just use the amplifier portion. Basically, we'll have two preamp tubes, probably a couple of power amp tubes, and a rectifier. We have plenty of other tubes available to us if we wanted to do some other things, like have tremolo even, or reverb. I've got a couple spare reverb tanks, so we might explore possibly designing some reverb and or tremolo into this. So if that's something you'd be interested in, stay tuned. Okay, first things first, what I've done is removed everything from the front of the chassis, and also removed the pedal control, the expression control box. That was that big box that sat up here. Removed that, removed everything from the front panel, and basically I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to how everything was. I'm not that concerned with it anyway, because most of this stuff is going to come out of here. So I've just basically come in and clipped off everything, left the resistors, because I don't know which ones will be useful to me. I might be able to use those resistors again and just leave them in place. So yeah, and disconnected the two. There's two pots on the front of an AO-29. There's one here. There's one here. The pots have helped me date this thing. It's actually a 1959 chassis. I've had a couple others that were just a little bit earlier. Or I've got one other one right now that's actually a little bit earlier. It's a 55, and it still had the field coil taps for the speaker. But there you can see clearly it's a 903, 1959, third week. This one is also 1959, third week. So yeah, that's where we're starting from. Now let's continue onward. Before we go much further, let's take a quick look at the schematic, and this is going to give us some ideas of which direction to take here. You know, once again, this chassis is kind of a Swiss Army knife. It does a lot of different things. We can see down here, here's our power supply, which is all fairly standard, except we have some other connections here that are going to be removed ultimately. So what we've done is we've just stripped back all the power stuff, so we're just left with our There's our primary leads. This is going to come out, and we're going to have a new 3-prong cord in here anyway. So we're going to have to add a fuse and also a on-off switch, which will probably go right over here. I would imagine that'd be a good spot for it. This is all going to get a new cover anyway, so all that will be covered up, or a new faceplate rather. If we come back to the schematic here, we will see that there are several amplifiers in here. Here's the pedal amplifier. That's for all the bass pedals. It comes in and gets amplified by this 6BA6, and then its output runs through the pedal drawbar, which changes the volume, and it runs all the way over here and up through here, and it hooks in right here. A few things actually hook in right here. There's another percussion amplifier here, which has a few of its own tubes in circuit, and it hooks up through a transformer to this point. There's also a vibrato signal that comes in, and that comes in from the vibrato channel through here, and it has a 6 AU6 pentode and then a half of a 12 AU7 that it goes through into this circuit and then out to that same point where everything hooks together. Now this point right here, everything from this point where everything kind of mixes together, and the expression control, they're considering this the intermediate amplifier. After that, we have a phase inverter, which this is here's the phase inverter. This is still part of the intermediate amplifier, I would assume is what they're calling that. This is the output amplifier. Here we have two 6V6s and a cathodiene phase inverter with 1/2 of a 12 AU7 taking care of the phase inversion, and then on to the output. This is all probably going to stay pretty much the same. I may make a couple little tweaks, but that's going to be pretty much the same. We may also leave this pretty much the same. Somewhere in here we're going to have a tone stack and a volume control. We will probably keep this half of the 12AX7, so we'll have a full 12AX7 between these two. We will have a 12AU7 inverter, and then our output. Before this 12AX7, we have a 6AU6 that's in the manual amplifier. We may actually experiment with leaving this and make this pentode our first stage. I think it would be interesting, an interesting spin on a build to have a AU6 as our first stage. So we will think about perhaps leaving this, and what we'll end up with is, let's see, our 6AU6 is this one, V2, and then we'll have a 12AX7, a 12AU7, and then these are our power tubes. There's our 5U4 over here, V11. Now this one, V10. V10 is currently this tube, this 6BA6. A 6BA6 and a 6AU6 have the same pinout, and they're very similar tubes. So what we're probably going to do, we're going to change V10 to a 6AU6, and we are going to use the V10 tube as a, let's see, we're going to use it as a tremolo, okay? And we're going to model our tremolo circuit after a Silvertone 1482's tremolo circuit. And these were made by Danelectro. I've actually serviced one of these before. I've had several of these amplifiers, the 1482, and they are exceptional little amps, really rock and tone. And we may even model some of this other stuff, like the tone circuit and so forth, after this amplifier. So essentially what we're going to end up with is kind of like a modified 1482, maybe with a pentode front end. And if we don't do a full pentode front end, we may do a half and half. So we'll have like one channel going into a pentode and another channel going into a triode, or we will have a blend knob that redirects the signal from one to the other or both. I've actually had really good luck with that sort of design in the past, so that might be something that we think about as well. But we are definitely going to rip off the tremolo circuit from the 1482, and the reason I'm choosing this tremolo circuit, first of all, it uses a 7-pin 6AU6 in the circuit, and second of all, it's a really good sounding tremolo. So this is where we're planning on going with it, so that gives us at least a little bit of direction. Now we know we're going to have to take out all the circuitry for this BA, so we can take out the pedal amplifier. All of these associated components can pretty much go. I may leave them in just to see how similar the circuit is that we're going to use, but it's probably best just to start with a blank slate, since that's going to be our tremolo circuit anyway. It's not going to look anything like an amplifier, so we'll just probably remove everything from around that. We will of course do our power. We know what to do with that. No big deal there. All this stuff can come out. All the associated components with the percussion amplifier can pretty much all come out, and that includes these transformers, and I believe that's these over here. So these can all these little guys can all come out of here. I'm not sure about some of this other stuff, but definitely a lot of this associated circuitry with these first tube sockets, a lot of this stuff can come out to be cleaned up. But that's where we're going to start from now. We're just going to come in here and start ripping some of this stuff out because we don't need it. Okay, we're going to take a little bit of a sidetrack here. I've kind of spotted an opportunity to do something kind of cool with one of these transformers that came out of this thing. There is one transformer you can find inside of an AO-29 that's over here in this position, and it's this little guy. Let's see, AO-220-64. That must be the part number, AO-220-64. So this is kind of cool. It had little legs on it. Had a couple bolts that went through here, and had these little brackets for legs, and those were the mounting brackets that mounted to these holes here and held it in place. I removed both of those, but I'm going to leave this on here. I've been doing some experimenting. That's why it kind of looks a little bit jacked up there, and I've got some tape back on it over here. But I haven't. Essentially, it's exactly the way it came out of the amp. But what we're going to do, we're going to try to make a pickup out of this thing, because essentially what we have here is a coil, and the cool thing about it is if we do a measurement here, I'm going to hook up my test leads. Let's see, hook up the other one over here. Whoops. If I can get it on there, sorry. Bad camera work. I'll just hook it out here. There we go. Okay, so essentially I've just got it hooked up to the outermost leads here. And we have a 4.3K reading. 4.3K is on the order of a pickup, a guitar pickup. So we're going to try something really cool here. Stick with me. Okay, I've got a couple ceramic magnets inside of an Altoids box. Everybody knows what Altoids are, the curiously strong peppermints. These ceramic magnets you can pick up at Harbor Freight. I just grabbed these the other day. It was like $1 or something for both of these magnets. And it said on the box, you know, like, oh, you can sew these into your clothing or sew these into your projects to make your projects magnetic or whatever. But they're pretty strong little magnets. I've been using them actually as kind of parts magnets. But if we set this thing in here, okay, we're just going to cut. We're going to cut off the terminals because they stick up too high. We're going to solder these two terminals together. I've got a wire here across these two, and I'm just going to solder this one in to this terminal. And solder this one to this terminal. Okay, I've actually I've drilled a hole through the bottom of the Altoids tin, and cool thing about this AO-29 is that the wiring harness actually has a couple of shielded wires. It's actually braided shielding, just like you would find on a Gibson pickup, already on the wiring harness, so you don't have to go hunt down any of this stuff. You got a few nice long leads. I think that's going to get it. And there's our pickup practically done. We may also wax pot this thing, but let's check it out, see what it sounds like. We'll strip back some wire and see what it sounds like. And let's close it up, and we'll see what happens when we turn on the amp. We have a working pickup, so that's pretty cool. Now right now it's, you can tap on it and everything, and it's going to be pretty microphonic, but I think if we come back in here, I'm going to get a candle, melt a bunch of wax in here. That might make it a little less microphonic, but I mean, hey. And all it really cost me was about $2 for the magnets. So that's pretty nifty, right? Okay, let's take a look at a couple of different AO-29s. On the left here we will see an unfinished AO-29. On the right here we will see a finished version. A few things we noticed right off the bat. The front panel is way different on this one. We have a couple of breakout boxes, and we have these big terminal strips where everything used to hook up. We also have a couple of pots. There's a pot here, pot over here that are both gone. Made a faceplate for this one for our control panel. We're also missing our first 4 tubes on this one, and in this one obviously they're still there. This one we're also missing the big box for the expression control, which was removed on this one. Also this one's still pretty dirty because it's fresh out of an organ, and that one is fairly clean by comparison. Let's flip these up on their backs and get a look at the insides. First thing you'll notice is that this one won't flip up on its back completely because we have a transformer here that sticks out. We'll flip this one up, and you see the inside of the finished version is pretty clean. I've taken out every component that wasn't necessary or wasn't used in the new design, so everything is a lot different than you're going to see on the old one. Of course, you've already seen a little bit of that, but we have a couple missing transformers. In this one, you'll see those transformers are still here. This is the transformer that we used in our experimental guitar pickup that we put in the Altoids box. which I might pull this one out and make a pair of those for a guitar. But this one's actually got a couple of different style components, and it looks like it was laid out perhaps a little differently than the other one that I have. Not sure of the age of this one. I think this one actually is a 1955. So this will give us a different look. I think we saw this one a little bit earlier in the process as well, and this is a 1959. So that'll give you some idea of what changes, you know, kind of had been made, or from 1955 to 1959. We'll also notice one of the main changes is that in the 1955 they actually have hookups for the electrodynamic speaker output. On this one, they did not have an electrodynamic speaker. It was probably an Alnico. I did not pull this one out of the organ. This one I actually did disassemble from the organ. And I also got the electrodynamic speaker with this one too. So if I convert this one, I will use the original speaker, which should be pretty cool. But yeah, there are the differences between one that is unconverted and one that is completely converted. And you can see, you know, again, main difference is a heck of a lot less components in the converted version. Okay, we're going to take one final look at the final schematic for this thing, and it's as it stands right now, it's a bit of a mess, obviously. All of the alternative amplifiers in this thing have been removed. All this black area was unused. That's why we actually have so much free real estate now in the amplifier, because we got rid of the pedal amplifier, the percussion amplifier. There was also a vibrato channel amplifier input. A bunch of stuff in here that we didn't use. So all this black area has been removed, and these black scribbles, all this stuff has been taken out. We removed, if we come down here to the power section, we obviously did some changes here that I did not notate. All of this stuff for the starting motor, all this stuff is removed. We have a 3-prong grounded cable. We also have a fuse and a switch. Instead of a start switch, we actually have a switch on board on the chassis. But that's on the primary side. Over here to the secondary side, we also made some changes. We took out, there was a little resistor right here before the first power rail node. We removed that. We removed all of this stuff for the lower voltages, like the 205 volts and the 37 and 32 volts. Also the stuff for the negative bias voltages. Down here we removed this stuff. And instead we have cathode biased the output using a 300 ohm resistor and a 25 microfarad capacitor, which is pretty similar to what a lot of amps actually with dual 6v6 output has, but also similar to the Silvertone 1482 that we stole our tremolo circuit from. The 1482, if you recall, had that 6AU6, so we stole the tremolo circuit, but the output also gave us kind of a guideline for biasing a pair of 6v6 output tubes, and we took that. And actually, if we come over here and look, these 330K resistors are exactly what we had already in this amplifier anyway. And if we look right here, we will see those, the 0.33 meg, that's 330K. And to the center of those is what we ended up tying our tremolo circuit to. So that's how the tremolo works. We removed, there are a couple on the speaker, there were some resistors, so we removed those, and then there was a bit of some feedback here. We removed this, the expression control, where it sat in this schematic or in this circuit, gave us a convenient point to tie in our volume and tone. So the input would go into the circuit, and then the output of that would go out of the circuit. And the circuit that we used was this one here. The only difference is I swapped the 500K tone pot for a 250K, and I may switch that back to a 500K. I also switched the volume to a 1 meg, so it's slightly different than what you see there, but that is the tone circuit, and that's where it goes. So basically you just splice that tone circuit into there, splice the tremolo circuit into here, and that more or less is our schematic up here. We left this 6 AU6 on the input, and just as an experiment, and I think that's given us some real nice crunch. The only thing I would say is that the speakers that I'm using currently are not really the best to get the most out of a pair of 6v6s, and plus the impedance is a little bit off. This calls for an 8 ohm. It wants to see 8 ohms of impedance. The two speakers in series add up to about 10 ohms. So those really need to be changed with something a lot more efficient and also the proper impedance, and then this amp would really sing, I believe. But here's what we ended up with. We removed some components here associated with this 6AU6 gain stage. Basically, this is like a network up here that was bypassing some signal around this stage, probably passing some highs, I believe. Kept all of the components with the check marks. Everything with a check was kept. This one I think is circled only because I wasn't sure what the value was, but I believe I kept that as well. And this one right here, that was actually, that little cap right there with the X through it, that was actually inside the expression pedal. They've got it, they're showing it here as a separate thing, but it was actually inside this expression control pedal. So that was removed along with the pedal. All of these components are the same. And yeah, so that basically, that is basically what we have left after removing all of the components that we removed. And now let's give it a listen. Okay, we're about ready to give this thing a listen, and we're just going to give it a final look over here. I have gone ahead and added a couple of little corner protectors that I had, little brass ones, kind of cool. Put a handle on it, which all amps need. Without a handle, you just kind of are a bit awkward, more awkward than you probably already are in my case. Here we can see the finished amp. Here is, you can see here the first 4 tube sockets are blank because we didn't use those, but everything over, from here over, we used. We have a volume, tone, and this is tremolo with intensity and speed, on-off switch, input jack, and I think the faceplate came out looking pretty good. Obviously, I don't have any labels on this thing, but if you can't figure out four controls, I mean, something probably wrong with you. There's these are the speakers that were in this cabinet when I got the thing, and to be honest, they're not all that efficient. They're also like 5 point a little something ohms each. I think they were for stereo hi-fi or something back in the day, and they're not really 100% right for guitar, but and probably not right for this amp, considering I think they're pretty low efficiency. If we were to get some nicer speakers in here, this thing would probably open up considerably. But as is, it does sound pretty good, and we'll give it a listen here in just a bit. But we could see here's where this is where the expression pedal controller thing used to be, and you can see where it was left. There's a lot of holes there, so I put a piece of thick aluminum, like a piece of turkey pan or something over that, and hooked up the speaker on the same speaker jack. I could have replaced that speaker jack and made it where you can plug and unplug different cabinets, but I went ahead and decided to go with what was already there, just to use up parts that were present in the amp when I got it. And that's kind of the name of the game here. I'm just using stuff out of my spare parts drawer. I'm not trying to buy anything. I'm not trying to use many new parts if I can get away with using some old stuff. But yeah, there's an overview of what the thing looks like. I think it turned out pretty good. I do have a back door for this with a panel on this side that kind of comes up and over, and there was a panel down here. And the previous owner had started making this back door for this when he was just going to use it as a speaker cabinet, and I modified it slightly. But honestly, at the end of the day, I think I like the look of it just open better. So I think I'm just going to leave it like this. And but yeah, let's give it a listen. That's a 1959 Hammond AO-29 converted into a guitar amp.